On this episode of Locked On Angels, Hye-Seong Kim isn't an angel, so what does that mean for someone like Kevin Newman and perhaps even Christian Moore? Do the team really believe in those two players, and will we see Christian Moore in 2025? We've got a lot to talk about. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all this Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, what are you waiting for? We're trying to get to 10K by opening day. So come on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. And if you are watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed win or lose. You can visit FanDuel.com to get started. So glad to have you here at Locked On Angels. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. My brother John and I are the hosts of Locked On Angels. My name is Mike Frisch. My brother is John Frisch. He is feeling a bit under the weather today, and so it's just you and me, Cowboy, today, and we're going to talk all about the Angels. We're entering our fourth season here at Locked On Angels. Currently, we are 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with a couple of quick hits in between on Tuesday and Thursday, so look out for those. But we will go back to 5 days a week, starting when pitchers and catchers report in February. We're getting really, really close after the holidays. It's nice to have something to look forward to, and that is baseball will be back very, very soon. And on today's show, the Halos didn't sign Hye-Seong Kim, so what does that mean for this team? What does it mean for Kevin Newman? What does it mean for Christian Moore? We're going to talk about that. The Angels are also leading the way in one major area in baseball, and it has to do with how they're using their prospects. So that'll be an interesting conversation in our third segment. But first, friends, Hye-Seong Kim is not an Angel. He's a Dodger. And that all happened on Friday. He signed a 3-year deal worth $12.5 million guaranteed. He has a 2-year option for 2028 and 2029. And if they get picked up together, that'll be a total of $22 million for the entire contract. Now, there was a tweet that confirmed a report with a source from the CAA that the Angels did offer Hye-Seong Kim a 5-year, $28 million deal. And if you were like me, then you probably saw that and went, man, that is a great deal for what seems to be a pretty great player coming out of the KBO. And so it would have been great to have him on the team. And if he took less money to go to the Dodgers, then I guess that is what it is, right? Because the Dodgers are a team that have won. They've benefited from the fact that they are winning. They've won the NL West. They won the World Series last year. They have the greatest player of all time. They have a great pitching staff. And so it would make sense why a player would be drawn there. It would make sense why a player would want to go there. And so it was a bit frustrating to see that tweet. It was a bit frustrating for Angel fans to see that we offered a bunch and yet we were still turned down. It also fed into the narrative that there are some Angel fans out there that hold that nobody wants to come here. But then Jeff Fletcher from the OC Register tweeted at the person that announced that the Angels did make this 5-year offer to Hye-Seong Kim. And he said that report of the Angels offering Hye-Seong Kim more money than the Dodgers was not accurate. He said he wasn't sure what the offer was, but Fletcher confirmed that it was less than what the Dodgers offered. And then there was, some social media traction and conversation about, well, what's true and what's not. And Jeff Fletcher by some Angel fans, was accused of, protecting the Angels organization and trying to spin the narrative. Here's the reality about Fletch. He is a friend of the show, and he's somebody who always seems to have good information, and it's information that's honest and real about the Angels. There's never been a time where he's been defensive of the team. There's never been a time where he's tried to protect the team. He's always just been honest about where this team is at, even when it was really ugly and even when it's really good. Fletch seems to be a very non-biased, very neutral reporter. And when we had him on our show, he talked a lot about Shohei, but he also talked a lot about the Angels. And that was our take from the show and even off the air. Super nice guy and very knowledgeable about the Angels. And he's someone who wants to see the Angels win because, according to him and a few other Angels people out there that report on the Angels, like Sam Blum, they've all said it makes it a whole lot more fun to report on a good team than a really terrible team. And Sam Blum and Jeff Fletcher both said it's really great when the Angels are winning because this fan base and the fans they've interacted with, they deserve a winner. So I would pump the brakes on any sort of accusation towards Jeff Fletcher. He seems to be very unbiased and very neutral when it comes to the Angels. And I trust his perspective. And it really brings up a tension that I think we have to wrestle with as Angel fans. I mean, what sounds more reasonable? Kim taking less money to go play with a winner like the Dodgers, or the Angels offering less money and not signing Kim? And I think what sounds more reasonable is the Angels offering less money. I think that honestly is probably what happened, which means that they probably weren't as excited about Hye-Seong as maybe I was, or John was, or everydayers were. They probably weren't as excited about getting him on this team as a lot of baseball fans would be. And all indications are Hye-Seong is a really good player, really good base runner, plays really solid defense, and would have been, I think, an asset to this team, especially with Zach Neto being out for at least the first month of the season, right? Because Hye-Seong could play second base, and they could have Kevin Newman play shortstop and Rengifo play third. But now they don't have that option. They don't have Hye-Seong Kim in this lineup. Now, I did see a comparison from a few baseball sites out there and from a few scouts that Hye-Seong Kim and Kevin Newman are kind of the same player. So it would make sense why the Angels wouldn't go and get Hye-Seong because they have Kevin Newman. Now, honestly, I would rather have both. I would have rather have seen the Angels sign Hye-Seong Kim and have Kevin Newman for the exact reason that I just mentioned, that you have Kim play second and Newman play short, and then Rengifo play third until Neto comes back. The other reason is a reason that John has brought up on this show. Johnny has said that Kevin Newman's best role is when he's not being relied upon to be an everyday player, an everyday starter. And I think that that's pretty true for the player that he is. And I think that would be a benefit to the Angels. So I don't know if I really agree with the comparison that Hye-Seong Kim and Kevin Newman are essentially the same player. Now, Hye-Seong's coming from the KBO, and his numbers will be a bit inflated as compared to what happens in Major League Baseball. And Kevin Newman's numbers over his career have been great backup numbers, been great fill in for this guy numbers. Kevin Newman is a guy that is on this roster so that we don't have to go to somebody who's not even a major league caliber player, right? Because we've had that happen so often with the Halos. We've had so many players over the last few years that when our star goes down, the backup is somebody that hasn't sniffed Major League Baseball ever and probably won't ever get to Major League Baseball. I know Eric Wagaman had a few games in a row where he was great for the Halos, but ideally you don't want Wagaman in your starting lineup every day if you can help it. But the Angels couldn't help it with injuries last year. So I don't know. I don't know if I am excited about the fact that it means that Kevin Newman is going to be a starter for a while until Neto gets back. I'm also not thrilled with the fact that The Angels haven't signed anybody else to play in the infield because it means, at least at this point, that Rengifo is going to be at second base and Kevin Newman's going to be at shortstop while Neto is out, which means guess who's playing third? Rendon. Anthony Rendon's going to be at third. So all this talk about him having to earn it, him having to work for it, right now it just feels like it's his, whether he earns it or not, right? And ideally, in an ideal world, because that's where we have to live right now, Rendon suddenly finds it again and ends up being a pretty quality major league player. And wouldn't that be a beautiful story if Rendon actually is a solid third baseman? Maybe not like the Rendon of 2019, but perhaps he could be a Rendon that actually could put up some good numbers and play some good defense. But then that puts us in the category that we've always fallen into as Angel fans. The category of, well, if he's healthy, then, right? And I'm tired of that. I really am tired of that. So all this to say, I was bummed that they didn't sign Kim. I wish that they did because it would have made sense for this infield. Plus, the number that he signed for with Dodgers, very reasonable. Which, by the way, why would you not offer him that? Why would you not go over that? Why would you not stretch yourself a bit for this guy? Unless you have something else in mind. That would make sense in my mind. But right now, we don't know what the Angels have in mind. It makes sense now for the Angels to not sign a free agent, at least for the infield. It makes sense now for them to make a trade and perhaps get a good infielder to help with what's happening right now so that Rendon isn't playing every day and that somebody's filling in that's a quality backup for Zach Neto, that Kevin Newman isn't always going to be the guy that they're relying upon. So right now it feels like that might be the move, especially if they're going to sign an outfielder, then it gives them some flexibility with who they can keep and who they can trade. And maybe Taylor Ward is in that trade conversation. And I love Taylor Ward, by the way. We talk a lot about trading him because his name has been out there. But can you imagine if they could get some quality pitching or maybe a quality infielder for a Taylor Ward, maybe a top prospect? And so if they sign a guy with a qualifying offer like a Santander, then they can go and trade Taylor Ward for a top prospect that could essentially replace what they lose in the second round of the draft this year. Lot to consider. Also, one last thing. So this report of Hye-Seong signing with the Dodgers is announced on Friday. And then around the same time, the Angels social media team posts a happy birthday, Jose Suarez. I mean, and wasn't that just like the epitome of being an Angel fan, where it was like, yeah, man, he's still on this team and we didn't get the guy that we were all hoping for. And what a world, what a world, what a world, right? Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, do the Angels, with not signing Kim, actually have great confidence in Christian Moore being more than maybe what we assume he might be, and perhaps even be the starter at second base in 2025? We're going to talk all about that coming right up. Today's episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything that you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. FanDuel has so many ways that you can pick up a big win. Not only do you have a chance to bet on who's going to win the game, but you can also make bets on who's going to score the most points, who's going to get the most touchdowns. You can get started at FanDuel.com. Join there today. And again, you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. You can make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And as we continue our conversation about the Angels and them not signing Hye-Seong Kim, it brings up an interesting conversation about Christian Moore. Now, John did an episode where we wondered about the role that Christian Moore will play on this team in 2025. And now we have to wonder about it again because they didn't sign another infielder, and all indications are they need another infielder. But at this point, not signing another major league player means that Christian Moore is probably going to be the guy that we're going to see at second base, at least to start the season, right? I mean, it would make sense that they give him that opportunity. And according to how the Angels have handled all of their previous draft picks with Neto and with Shonowell, it would make sense that in spring training, Christian Moore gets an opportunity to earn second base, to earn the second base starting job. And I think that maybe that's the direction the Angels are going. All indications are, with them not signing an infielder, that they really have high hopes for Christian Moore, which for me as a fan gets me excited, because if they're excited for this guy and they believe that he can handle himself at second base, then why not have him at second base? We saw what he did in the minor leagues last year. He had a bit of a cup of coffee in Double-A and really played well. And so why not give him the opportunity to see what he can do, at least in spring training at the major league level? And if he can be the guy that we saw for just a glimpse at Single-A and then a bit of time at Double-A, then the Angels are going to look pretty smart by giving him the opportunity to hold down the second base job. And I think that that might be the best way forward right now, because there aren't really great quality infielders out there that you would want to sign that might potentially block Christian Moore from playing second base. Now, I've mentioned on this show, John has as well, that Brendan Rodgers is somebody who played for the Rockies that could potentially be somebody that could handle the second base position. He's got a good bat and plays so-so defense. But if you don't have to pay a bunch of money and you can bring in a potential superstar from your prospect list, from your minor leagues, then I guess it makes sense to try to do that, especially after what we heard from Christian Moore last year. Christian was somebody that really fired me up. He's somebody that's like, I'm going to win. I'm going to be the winner. I'm going to bring a winning culture to whatever team I'm going to be on. And doesn't this team desperately need that? We've had just a neutral, no heartbeat sort of team the last few years, with all of the injuries, with all of the losing. It's hard to be excited about this team as fans. I'm sure it's hard to be excited about this team as a player. But the infusing of great talent and the infusing of great energy and passion that the Angels have infused this team with the last few years, with Neto and Shonowell and Logan O'Hoppe, gets me excited if you put Christian Moore in the mix. I think the Angels have really high confidence in Christian Moore. And I think the Angels are potentially considering what it would look like for him to start at second base. Now, here's the tension. And I'm sure you already thought about it, maybe even commented about it before I even brought it up. What if Christian Moore sucks? What if spring training doesn't go well? What if he gets hurt? What if? And all of those what ifs are important. And if you're going to rely on this young guy to try to solve the second base issue, then you're taking a big risk. And perhaps the reward is greater than the risk. But what if it doesn't work out? The Angels are going to have to wrestle with that. And they're going to probably find themselves back to square one and what we talked about in the first segment. You're going to have Rengifo at second, Kevin Newman at short, and Rendon's going to be your third baseman. But I'm wondering, what do they do about backing those guys up? Obviously, they can bring in a Kyron Paris, but Kyron Paris has shown that he hasn't been able to really come through, at least offensively, at the major league level. And so they're back into the same issue, the same conundrum that they've been in the last couple of years, that the backups are just not great backups, and they're not going to give you quality at bats, and they're not going to be a quality player defensively, which is why the Kim signing makes so much sense for this team. But they didn't do it. They offered less money, according to Jeff Fletcher. So I got to believe that they're really confident in Christian Moore. I got to believe that they're really excited about what this guy could potentially bring to the team. And so should I be confident about that? Should I be excited about that? Should you be confident about that? Should you be excited about that? We have a lot of reasons to hold back our excitement, to have some reservation, right? Because this team hasn't been a team that you've been able to believe in and trust. And what the upper management has said about this team hasn't been something that has matched what they've done to help try to make this team better. They want to compete, but they didn't add to this team last year. This year, they want to compete for a playoff spot, and they did add some pieces. They really did add some good pieces, mostly to the bottom end of this roster. Kikuchi is a top-end guy, but it doesn't seem like it's quite enough yet. If Christian Moore is not ready. But I wonder if they believe that he is. I wonder if they're confident that he's going to be the starting second baseman and just haven't said it out loud yet. And I don't blame them for not saying it out loud, because they don't really ever say anything out loud, especially the obvious thing, right? And so maybe Christian Moore is the guy. Maybe Christian Moore is Howie Kendrick, because Howie Kendrick came up and suddenly was our second baseman. Maybe he's the guy. And so are you excited about that? As I consider that, and I'm just talking out loud right now, I'm excited to see what he could potentially bring, not just from a cultural perspective, but from an offensive perspective. I'm excited what he brings to this lineup. And so if he can be a quality batter and a neutral defender, then I guess it would make sense that perhaps Christian Moore is going to be our starting second baseman in 2025. And I guess it makes sense why the Angels didn't offer Hye-Seong Kim a better deal than the deal he signed with the Dodgers. Locked On Angels is brought to you by our friends at Gametime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, theater, music, comedy, so much more. I recently went to see Back to the Future, the musical, on stage in Costa Mesa at the Segerstrom Theater, and we got our tickets on Gametime, and it was so much fun. If you're a Back to the Future fan, it's incredibly, 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 incredibly cheesy and so awesome. You're going to love it. If you're not a Back to the Future fan, take your Back to the Future fan, friend, or family member to this. They're going to love it. Again, cheesy, but awesome. And Gametime helped us get there. And right now, Gametime makes it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff to show you only the deals that you want on the great seats that you need. Don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Plus, the app has all-in pricing that shows the total cost up front. There's no surprise fees at checkout. So take all the guesswork out of buying tickets. I hate the guesswork. I just want to buy tickets. I just want to go. And I think a lot of people are that way. So download the Gametime app because they're going to help you find those tickets. You can create an account, easy for me to say, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, you can download the Gametime app, create an account, and redeem with our $20 with our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right. Now we get to talk about something that is, I guess you could say, kind of surprising, perhaps even shocking. All this talk about the Angels being in, quote unquote, on players and not signing them can be really frustrating for Angel fans. And then what's even more frustrating is seeing that the Dodgers are signing all the players that we are, quote unquote, in on. And because we haven't been able to lock in any of these players, and because there is a narrative from some fans that nobody wants to come here, it does make sense now for the Angels to really focus on building a great team through the draft. And the Halos have actually been doing that right under our noses over the last couple of years, especially this last year. This last year's draft is fantastic, and I think we're going to see a lot of those players soon and very soon on the Angels. In a recent article for ESPN, Kylie McDaniel, an ESPN MLB insider, wrote that drafting ready now players is something that teams are now currently considering and looking to do more of. This author writes that this scenario of players in college and junior college are getting more experience than they would, say, at the minor league level to develop and to grow and to work on some things in specific ways like defense or hitting or how they're throwing the ball, tracking the ball, whatever it might be. They're getting the opportunity at college and junior college to do those things in a very intentional and thoughtful way. And teams are starting to really notice how beneficial that is to the players that they're drafting. And they're paying attention to it. And one of the reasons why they're paying attention to that benefit is because this is what the Angels have done with their last few picks. Obviously, Zach Neto and Nolan Shonawell, and we've talked about Christian Moore. The idea, and we've discussed this on Locked On Angels, is that college programs become the quote-unquote developmental system, and then teams draft those developed with an ED players and potentially could place them on a higher roster, not starting them at low A or high A. They could place them maybe at double A or even triple A, or perhaps even on the major league roster, because these players are ready to play right now. And again, all of this has been discussed because the Angels have been doing this the last couple of years. And this article writes about how other teams are noticing that, which I find fascinating because, with all the garbage that fans can talk about when discussing the Angels, and rightfully so, they've been terrible for the last 10 years. This is certainly different. And as an Angel fan, quite nice to see that other teams are following the Angels' lead. And perhaps this is the way of the future. This is the way of baseball. Right now, it seems like it's the way of the Angels, which makes me want to circle back to that Christian Moore conversation in the last segment. Maybe that actually is the move and has been the move for a while. And it will continue to be the move for the Angels because they seem to be, at least from Artie's perspective, unwilling to make a significant investment in particular players that are on the free agent market. Now, we'll see if they go after a Santander, or they're rumored to be in conversations with Pete Alonso, although I don't really believe that one. Santander makes a bit more sense to me for this team and for 2025 than Pete Alonso does. But it seems like the Angels are really leaning in the direction of building through the draft, developing their team through the draft, and winning through the draft. And so maybe that's where the Angels are leaning. And they're okay with not winning a lot right now so that these guys that they've drafted have the major league experience that they need so that they can win potentially a lot later. Now, John and I contend that the window of opportunity for the Angels is not this year, but it's next year. 2026 seems to be the time when things might start clicking, when you might see your Caden Danas and your George Clausens and your Samuel Aldegueris at the major league level. And we're not going to have to worry about who we're going to sign or what pitcher we would get, which, by the way, the major league free agent pitchers next year aren't great. And so if the Angels are going to sign a pitcher, they should probably get somebody this year, and it should probably be somebody like Jack Flaherty. But maybe they don't want to clog up their rotation with somebody who's a free agent because they want to make room for the young guys. Now, I know that that's high hopes and wishful thinking, but perhaps that's what the Angels are doing. And this article from ESPN speaks about how the rest of baseball is watching what the Angels have done and believing that that might be the wave of the future. And if it is, how weird and ironic is it that the Angels are actually leading the way in something that nobody anticipated and nobody expected, but now they're on the precipice of doing something that is cutting edge. They haven't been cutting edge for years. That's been their biggest struggle. They're just now getting what they need at their spring training facilities for hitters and for pitchers. And they're just now starting to infuse this organization with technology while not dismissing the knowledge of the scouts and the eyeball test and some of those things. But wouldn't it be fascinating to see our team, our favorite team, actually lead the way here and other teams follow that lead? My gut says that for the rest of baseball, this probably won't be a thing. It'll probably be more of an anomaly. We'll see teams draft and then bring somebody up, and it'll be breaking news on SportsCenter. Ethan Holiday is now the starting shortstop for this team. It'd be great if it was our team, right? But Ethan Holiday is now on a major league roster. We'll probably see some of that stuff, but I think it might be more of an anomaly for baseball. It might actually be more of the norm for the Angels. And right now, based off of what we've seen the Angels do with their last couple of drafts and bringing up Neto and Shawnuel, is it actually might be the best way forward if they are unwilling to make a huge financial investment in the players that are free agents each and every year. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully. He's going to bring a blend of humor and baseball and keep you updated on every rumor and every story throughout the offseason. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow us on X or Twitter at Locked On Angels, and you can connect with us there also at Super Halo Bros. And then you can find us on Instagram at Super Halo Bros. We would love to chat with you if you have questions. Thank you to those that have been commenting. Thank you to those that have sent us a lot of your thoughts through direct message. And you, of course, can comment below on the video if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on the audio side, come on over to YouTube, click subscribe, hit the like button. It helps to get this show in front of other Angel fans. We've got a lot of fans that have just recently found us. Friends, we're glad that you're here and how exciting it is to be with you to talk Angels baseball, even though they break our hearts and even though they drive us crazy. Perhaps 2025 might actually be an anomaly year for us and we actually win, but we're glad that you're here and appreciate you being with us here at Locked On Angels. We're going to be back on Wednesday. Remember, we're just 3 days a week leading up to pitchers and catchers reporting. Then we go to 5 days a week. And if anything breaks, if anything happens, we're going to be here with an emergency pod episode for you. So don't worry about that. That's why you should follow us on social media. But we will also be here with all breaking news. If someone signs or if a trade happens, we will be here for you. But coming up on Wednesday, this show on Wednesday is going to be for all the people who mention that the prospect rankings are so important and they always slam the Halos for their ranking being so low. On Wednesday, I'm going to give you one major example as to why those rankings for prospects and minor leagues, why those rankings actually don't matter. And I'm going to share with you why they don't matter coming up on Wednesday. Can't wait to see you. John, hopefully we'll be back. And if he's not, it'll be just you and me, Cowboy. But until then, thank you for being here. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And I look forward to having a conversation with you about our Halos on Wednesday.